The British pub has suffered 100 years of struggles, from the Temperance Society to 2 world wars, from drink driving and smoking bans, to the pandemic, to energy crisis, and to Brexit taking 600,000 hospitality workers out of the country overnight. The pubs are vanishing everywhere. Well, here we are in Britain's first seaside resort, Scarborough. If pubs are vanishing here, they are vanishing everywhere. And behind me is the Golden Ball pub, and it's Sam Smith's pub. The Sam Smith's brewery is the oldest brewery in Yorkshire, dating back to 1758. At its height, they had 200 pubs across Yorkshire, and now they only have 120. Most famously, Sam Smith's pubs don't allow music, don't allow TVs, no phones are allowed, it's just for socialising. And Humphrey Smith, who runs Sam Smith's at the moment, he goes into Sam Smith's pubs, and if he hears a swear word in there, he'll shut that pub down immediately. Maybe that's what happened here back in 2021. And here it is back in 2018 on Google Street View. You can see the lovely frontage, and there's even a man leaning on the wall outside having a cigarette. And if we pan around and you look into that lounge, you can see just how busy it was. What a shame. And just around the corner from the Golden Ball and right by the seafront, behind me is the Dolphin Inn, and this closed in 2009. This behind me is the Britannia Inn, and it's directly facing the Dolphin Inn, which closed in 2009. This has been closed for over 10 years now, and so close to the seafront. Behind me along this massive stretch used to be the Albian, and it closed in 2012, and it was sold to developers who turned it into 4 terraced houses which sold for $224,000 each. Nowadays they're run as an Airbnb in the summer, fetching £200 a night, and in the winter they're rented out for a week at £200 a week. And here it is on Google Street View back in 2008, where you can see all the great acts they had on. And we used to come to the drag cabaret act that they had on a Saturday night almost every single week. And here it is in 2014 with the scaffolding outside it about to be turned into what it is today. This behind me was the King Cas, and on TripAdvisor it has a 5 out of 5 rating. Nobody has a bad word to say about the place. When we first moved to Scarborough, we used to come to the weekly pub quiz here and socialise with the locals. Closed in 2017. Where are people supposed to go now? Behind me is the Wellington pub, which closed in 2019, and after trying to get new people to run it, it's now going to be converted into more apartments. Just what we need. This behind me is Lmore Nightclub, also known as Berlin's nightclub, and it closed in 2014 after having lots of run-ins with the council. And there's lots of operators who wants to come in and run it since, but because of the new cultural impact zone, no operator can come in and operate these premises. When they were having troubles with the council, they installed a metal detector. Well, the metal detector didn't work. Well, you could make it go off, but they didn't like the look of the person. Long lost era. And this lovely building behind me was the Shakespeare, and it was one of the most liveliest venues in Scarborough. They had great karaoke in there. There was always something going on, but it closed at the end of 2018. And here it is on Google Street View with people coming and going from the front. And behind me was the new George Inn, which closed in 2008, and now it's become a casino with the same name. Good times? And behind me is Quid Inn, which closed in 2018 after lots of run-ins with the council. It's been stood empty ever since. Behind me is the council offices, and when we first moved to Scarborough over 20 years ago, Scarborough was a 24-hour vibrant type of place with all the retail shops open and with a fantastic bustling nightlife which would last until 5 o'clock. Conservatives came into power in 2010 and they started to look to cut funding to local councils, and that's where this cultural impact zone came in. They could reduce spending on police, reduce spending on street cleaning if they stopped letting licenses extend or open licenses. There were vendors waiting to come into a lot of these nightclubs and reopen them. But in this council and under Conservative rule of austerity, that won't happen. Conservatives have cut funding to local councils by 18.6 billion since they came in. That's a 68% reduction on what was spent on local services beforehand. And this behind me is the Hole in the Wall pub, and it closed in January 2023, citing the pandemic and the steep hill for its closure. Plans have been approved to also turn this into a residential block. Let's hope those residents can cope with this steep hill. This behind me was EXS Mansion nightclub, and it closed way back in 2009. It was famous for its sunken dance floor, and it spread over 2 floors, and lots of operators have wanted to come in and run it since, but because of that cultural impact zone, just like Boleyn's, the council won't allow it. And this behind me was the Lmore Nightclub, and sadly it closed during the coronavirus pandemic back in 2020. A lot of the drag acts that left the Albion came here, and sadly they're no longer in Scarborough. What a shame. And this behind me was the Lijiang Bar and BBQ. It opened in December 2022 in the old print works for the evening news, and it only lasted about 6 months before it had to close because of the soaring costs. Where's the help? This behind me is Cellars, and it features in the 2024 Camera Good Beer Guide. One problem: it closed in October 2023 due to energy crisis. This pub actually featured in the Camera Good Beer Guide more than any other pub in Scarborough. It featured it 17 times, and now it's closed. And behind me, this is a really sad one, is the Cask, and it's home to some very talented musicians and a weekly jazz night. The pub really wants to stay open, and the community wants it to stay open, but Heineken UK, who run this building, are wanting to sell it for £350,000 because it's going to cost too much to maintain the pub. There is a community group trying to fight back against it. Let's hope they can do something to save this pub going the way of all the other ones. And this behind me used to be El Gringo's restaurant, which has now moved to the town centre, but below it used to be the Ink Bar, which opened in 2017, and it was a fantastic cocktail bar that I used to really enjoy. And in the summertime they had a mariachi band playing up here. Sadly, the owners retired in 2021, and like we're seeing in a lot of pubs across the town, it's now been turned into private residences. Lots of units in here, each going for £500,000 each. You can understand why they're closed, but it's annoying all the same. With the help of Glenn Woolley from the Lost Pubs project, I'll put a link in the description below, we've uncovered over 150 pubs that have left Scarborough's High Street in the last 20 years. How many will be left in the next 20? This one behind me is the Ramshill pub, and this is my local. Sadly, it's also closed. Behind me is my local, the Ramshill, which is run by Heineken UK, and a group called J&S Pub Company, who have a few pubs in Scarborough, ran it until April 2023. It was home to local TV personality and singer Danny Wilde, and the closest pub because of staffing problems and energy costs. What a shame, I've got no local. So what is the hope for the future? Well, micro pubs are becoming more and more popular and are attracting people away from big pub corporations where people can come and run their own free house and not be told how much rent to pay. And if the rateable value is less than £6,000, get away with not paying any business rates. And a micro pub like this could earn well over £60,000 and it's hugely popular. Stumble In behind me is also in the Canberra Good Beer Guide. Check it out when you're in Scarborough. Cheers and thank you for watching.